Hey guys, my name is JC and today we're playing Krark the Thumbless and Thrasios Triton Hero. The goal of this deck is to cast and copy our way to victory through a variety of combat and non-combat means. If you enjoy how this deck plays out, then make sure to stop by the channel where we do have a deck tech discussing all of the included cards as well as the overall strategy. Let's see if our opponents can stop the come-in storm. Alright guys, let's see who we're up against today. We have Oona, Queen of the Fae. We also have Grand Arbiter Augustin the 4th. That's definitely not good news for us. And we have Ayli, Eternal Pilgram. Okay, so knowing that we've got Grand Arbiter in the command zone over there. We got a lot of lands. I mean, Resculpt is nice interaction. Cultivate is ramp, which we're probably going to need lands and ramp to be able to pay for all the spells we're doing. I think we might have to keep it just because we have the Resculpt in hand and can hopefully take Grand Arbiter down for even a turn, because sometimes that's all we need to storm off and win the game. So we'll keep this hand and we'll see how we go. At the very least, we'll have Thrasios there to be able to generate us some card advantage should the game become a Staxia one and Grand Arbiter happens to land some of their strong pieces. Grand Arbiter starts us off by playing a land for turn, and they end the turn there. Ayli plays a land, and now they cast a turn 1 Esper Sentinel. Probably the best Esper Sentinel you can hope to have. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player plays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. And that's it for them. We draw a Tavern Scoundrel for turn. I'm actually really happy to see that early. So let's just start off our turn 1 as we almost always do with this deck. When we have a fetch land, we'll play a fetch land, we'll crack it, we'll get ourselves our Ketria Triome, and then we're going to shift the turn over. Oona starts by playing a tap land for turn. It will gain them 1 life, even though it enters the battlefield tapped. But that is it for them. Grand Arbiter plays a land, and they cast an Everflowing Chalice kicked once. That triggers Esper Sentinel, but they don't pay. So Ayli draws a card, and they end the turn. Ayli plays a land, and now they cast a Mind Stone. Now they move to combat, they send the Esper Sentinel over at the Oona player. Oona takes the 1 damage going back to 40, and that is it for the Ayli player's turn. We draw Gitaxian Probe, so we'll start by playing Reflect in Pool, and now we'll cast our Commander Krark. And let's just ship the turn there and hope that next turn we can resolve our Cultivate and start ramping ahead of this Grand Arbiter to start paying our taxes. Oona plays a land for turn, and it is an Urborg, so we all have swamps now. Now they cast a Sol Ring, which triggers Esper Sentinel, but they do pay for it. And now they use that Sol Ring to cast a Voltaic Key. You can pay 1 and tap it to untap target artifact. Now they use the Voltaic Key to untap their Sol Ring. And now they use that Sol Ring to cast a Lightning Greaves. So that was quite a nice line of play that the Oona player had that turn. Definitely putting their artifacts to good use. And after that pretty good turn, that's it for them. Alright, well I think this turn we see the Grand Arbiter come down, which means that our Cultivate isn't looking likely to happen. They do play a land for turn. Maybe we get lucky and they don't cast their commander. Let's just see. Well, it looks like they are delaying it. They're casting a Talisman of Progress instead. That does trigger Esper Sentinel. Do they pay for it? It looks like they do. And now they also cast a Mystic Remora. Well, that makes sense why they did that. They want to draw some more cards themselves. Mystic Remora says cumulative upkeep 1, and whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 4. Another card that is not really good to come up against when we're playing our type of deck where we plan to storm off. And that's it for the Grand Arbiter. So quite a few pieces down already that don't play well with our deck. We're going to have to be careful and not getting too greedy, otherwise we may just give the game to one of the other players. Ayli plays their land for turn. Now they move to combat, they send the Esper Sentinel towards Grand Arbiter. They take the damage, going down to 39. And it looks like Ayli's just passing the turn there, leaving mana up. So they may be looking to interact with the board. We'll soon see. We draw a land for turn. Well, just in case they do have an opposition agent, I'm not going to be too keen to play our fetch land. I do respect that card, even though I don't see it all that often these days. So we'll start by playing an island for turn. Then what we'll do is we'll cast our Tavern Scoundrel. And let's hope we don't have to feed this Mystic Remora too much. But we are going to attempt to look at what's in the Grand Arbiter player's hand and the Ayli player's hand if we can resolve this and copy it. So we'll pay the 2 life for Gitaxian Probe. That does trigger Esper Sentinel. The Ayli player is holding up priority here, so they might be thinking if they want to cast something, and they do. They cast a Path to Exile targeting our commander. That will trigger Mystic Remora. Well, unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. That is going to go through. At least we do get a basic land out of it. Let's just really hope that they don't cast an opposition agent in response to that search. Otherwise, we're going to be pretty sad. So we will use the ability. We'll find ourselves a forest. We will pay for the Esper Sentinel trigger. We won't be able to pay for Mystic Remora, so Grand Arbiter will draw a card. And even though Krark is gone, we still get its trigger, so we just have to hope that we do win the flip. So we'll choose heads as our successful flip. Come on, Krark. We do win, thankfully. So we do get a copy on the stack. We'll have a look at the Grand Arbiter's hand. That also triggers Tavern Scoundrel to make us 2 treasures, which is going to help to pay for that Krark command attacks. So we draw a Cleansing Wildfire. Well, that'll be good taking care of some of the non-basics. So they've got a Kasmina Generous Gift as removal. Okay. Elite Spellbinder. That also might be problematic. Sphere of Safety we don't worry about. Confounding Conundrum, not too much of a worry. Let's do our Gataxian Probe now on the Ayli player. Phyrexian Tower, Gemstone Caverns, Dance of the Dead. Okay, Ghost Council of Orzhova. So nothing too scary. Well, I guess we're just going to have to pass the turn there. Oona plays a tap land for turn, a Myriad Landscape. And it looks like they tapped out a lot of their mana, but then just moved straight to combat. So I think that might have been a misclick for them. And they are just moving straight to their end step. So I think they may have accidentally misclicked that. That's a bit of a shame. It happens to the best of us, but it really does hurt when that happens. Alright, so now moving to Grand Arbiter's turn. Their Mystic Remora does trigger. They'll almost certainly pay the 1, especially knowing a deck like ours that is planning on casting a lot of spells. And they do. They tap down their Everflowing Chalice to pay for it. They play a land for turn. And now they cast Confounding Conundrum. When it ETBs, draw a card whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control. If that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control this turn, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. That does trigger Esper Sentinel. And the Arbiter does pay. That goes through, and on ETB it draws them a card. But it seems that's all they want to do for turn, and they're going to end it there. Ayli just moves straight to combat. And Esper Sentinel goes towards the Oona player. They take the damage, going down to 39. Now Ayli plays a land for turn. Then they follow that up by casting the Ghost Council of Orzhova. When it ETBs, target opponent loses a life and you gain a life. You can pay 1, sack a creature, exile Ghost Council of Orzhova, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. They put the trigger target in us, so we'll lose a life and they'll gain a life. And that's it for their turn. We draw Balaged Recovery, so we'll start by playing a Snow-Covered Island. Then I think we're going to have to slow roll it here because of the Confounding Conundrum shutting off our Cultivate, or at least making it worse. And the Mystic Remora hurting us again for casting our instants and sorceries. Let's just get Krark back onto the battlefield. Hopefully it can stick this time. And if we draw something a little better, hopefully some more interaction, then we might be able to do a little more as we come up to the next couple of turns. But we will move to combat. We'll attack the Grand Arbiter player, at least while we can, before that Sphere of Safety comes down. And then we're going to pass the turn there. Oona starts by playing a land for turn. And now they cast their commander, Oona, Queen of the Fae. It has flying, and for X and a Dimir mana, you can choose a color. Oh, move that out of the way. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. For each card of the chosen color exiled this way, create a 1/1 blue and black fairy rogue creature token with flying. Now they do move to equip their Lightning Greaves onto their commander. Now they move straight to combat. They send Oona over towards the Grand Arbiter player. Probably a little fearful for when tax time does roll around. And a Mystic Remora is also going to be a bad thing to have on their board. That damage goes through, knocking Grand Arbiter down to 33. And that's it for the Oona player. Mystic Remora triggers on the Grand Arbiter's upkeep. It looks like they're paying to keep it around. Now they cast their Sphere of Safety. Creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays X for each of those creatures, where X is the number of enchantments you control. And they are just going to leave the turn there. Ayli plays a land for turn, and now they cast a Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. +1, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink. -2, you get an emblem with. Creatures you control get +1/+0. And -6, destroy up to 3 target creatures and or other planeswalkers. Return each card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. That does trigger Mystic Remora, which they can't pay for. Now they uptick Sorin, making a 1/1 vampire token. They move to combat. They send the Ghost Council towards Grand Arbiter. But then they realise the Sphere of Safety is there, so they don't have enough mana to pay for it. It only leaves 2 targets, but if they swing at the Oona player, that means they're going to have 5 damage coming back at them, so we're probably going to be the better target. Well, it seems they're still trying to do that. I don't think they've realised about the Sphere of Safety yet. And I think once they realised that, they decided to pass through combat and then end the turn there. Now we do have the option to try to use our Boseiju and actually get rid of that Mystic Remora, so that we're not going to be drawing cards for Grand Arbiter if we do cast something, but I don't think there's anything in hand at the moment that's going to make us want to do that, so I think we'll hold on to Boseiju just a little longer. We draw a land for turn. Okay, we'll start by playing our island for turn. Now I think might be the time to actually get Thrasios down because we need to draw cards, but we don't want to be drawing any more cards for the Grand Arbiter player. So let's get him into the fray. And at worst, even if we don't draw the cards we want, we can use it to ramp for when Grand Arbiter inevitably does come down. But it's just going to really help us get around those tax effects. One of the real powers of Thrasios and why we run it in this deck. Now combat-wise, I don't want to swing in at the Oona player in case they get a little fiery from that and decide to attack us instead. So I think we're just going to hold back here. So let's just pass the turn over to our opponents. Now they tap their Soul Ring, then they use their Voltaic Key to untap their Soul Ring, just generating them an extra mana. Now they tap out, activating Oona's ability, targeting Grand Arbiter. Okay, let's see how many cards get exiled here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7 cards. A few really good ones, especially Archaeomancer. That does make them 4 fairy tokens for the Oona player. Now they move to combat. Hopefully Oona goes over towards the Planeswalker, and they do, thankfully. So that won't be too much of a problem for us because we weren't going to be able to handle it anytime soon. We have a response here. Ayli casts a Village Rites. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sack a creature and draw 2 cards. So they sack their Vampire token. They did trigger Rhystic Remora, they couldn't pay for it. So Grand Arbiter drew a card, but then Ayli also drew 2 cards from that. Damage goes through and Sorin is down. And that's the end of their turn. Mystic Remora triggers on Grand Arbiter's upkeep. It looks like they do want to keep it around a little bit longer. So they tap down 3 mana to keep it in play. Now they play a land for turn. And now they cast a Smothering Tithe. That does trigger Esper Sentinel. And they decide to pay for that. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If the player doesn't, you create a treasure token. Very dangerous card. I'm actually really glad that we held on to our Boseiju, because that's just going to give the Grand Arbiter player too much mana to play with. I really wanted to use it on the Mystic Remora, but I think we might actually have to use it on the Smothering Tithe. So we move to the Grand Arbiter's end step. We'll use our Boseiju on the Smothering Tithe now. We'll pay 1 green, because we have our commander out, and we'll channel Boseiju, destroying the Smothering Tithe. That goes down, so they get to search their library for a land. And that's it for the Grand Arbiter's turn. Ayli plays a land, the Phyrexian Tower, that they can use to sack a creature to add 2 black mana. Now they cast a Sign in Blood, which triggers Mystic Remora. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. They don't pay for the fish. Grand Arbiter draws a card. Now they move to combat. They send their Ghost Council towards the Grand Arbiter. Are they going to pay for it this time, or are they still realizing the Sphere of Safety is out there? It looks like they are staying with the target and they're paying the mana now. The damage goes through, Grand Arbiter goes down to 29 life. And now they finish their turn by casting a Blood Artist. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses a life and you gain a life. Now they move to their end step, we're going to activate Thrasios. We find a Growth Spiral, normally really good, but with that Confounding Conundrum out, not too good for us. So let's put that on the bottom of our library. And we find a Search for Tomorrow, another piece that's not too good while that card's out on the battlefield. We move to our turn, we draw a Nature's Law, yet another piece. So it seems like the Confounding Conundrum's definitely hurting us more than we'd hoped for. Let's start, we'll play our Forest Land. Now look, while our other opponents are focusing on the Grand Arbiter, I don't want to do anything that's going to give the Grand Arbiter player a chance to get back into the game. If we can keep the focus on them just a little bit longer, once they're down and out, or at least cut back a little bit, I think we can probably explode and start to get ahead in this game. So let's just pass the turn again, holding up Thrasios, and we'll hopefully draw into something we need. If we need to react, then we can always use Thrasios and hopefully get into some counter magic or any form of stack interaction. So we won't attack the Grand Arbiter player, and we definitely won't attack the other opponents. So let's just leave the turn there. Inventor's Fair triggers on Oona's upkeep, they gain a life. They play a land for turn. Now it looks like they're just moving straight to combat. It looks like Oona is going towards the Grand Arbiter player. And it looks like that's it, they're just keeping the fairies back. So at the moment, the Grand Arbiter player is certainly the focus of all the other players at the table, but that does happen sometimes when you're playing one of those commanders that a lot of people do see as being kill on sight. I mean, we've played decks like that on the channel before, so we definitely know how it feels. It's something you've always got to be prepared for when you step up to a table with that type of commander. You got to be ready to take the heat. Damage goes through, that takes them down to 24 life and 10 commander damage, notably from Oona. Now they use their Voltaic Key, untapping their Soul Ring. And now they activate their Oona, Queen of the Fae, targeting the Grand Arbiter once again. They hit a few extra cards, it does only make them 1 fairy token though. And that's it for their turn. Mystic Remora triggers on Grand Arbiter's upkeep. It is starting to become quite costly, but so far they've shown that they do want to keep it around. No, this time they actually let it go. They play a land for turn. And they decide to lose the 2 life so it can come in untapped. Now Grand Arbiter casts a Karmic Justice, which does trigger Esper Sentinel, and they decide not to pay. Karmic Justice says, whenever a spell or ability an opponent controls destroys a non-creature permanent you control, you may destroy target permanent that opponent controls. That's a pretty nasty card, so we're definitely going to have to keep that in mind, otherwise we may have some permanent blown up that we don't really want to. And now they cast a Mechanized Production. Enchant artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. Well, I think if the Grand Arbiter player wasn't feeling the pressure already, those cards there are definitely going to put an even bigger target on them, which is going to be fine by us. As long as that attention's off of us, we're fine with that. It's going to buy us some of the time that we need. And still Grand Arbiter hasn't come down yet, which is really good news for us. Now they cast an Elite Spellbinder. When it ETBs, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile an on-land card from it. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. It looks like they're targeting the Oona player with that trigger. And they decide to exile the Crystal Shard. And that's it for them. Ayli plays a land for turn. Now they cast a Bastion of Remembrance. When it ETBs, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain 1 life. So we're starting to see the aristocrat effects come down onto the board. Something that hasn't become too relevant yet, but probably will be as the game goes on. And now they cast their commander, Ayli, Eternal Pilgrim. It has Death Touch, you can pay 1 and sack another creature, you gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. And for 3 mana, sack another creature, exile target non-land permanent, activate only if you have at least 10 life more than your starting life total, which currently won't be online, but that will eventually give them access to remove pretty much anything that's going to be problematic on the board for them. Now they also cast a Vindicate, target in the Karmic Justice. Well, that's very good news for the table, especially for us, which we really need to get rid of that Confound and Conundrum and eventually that Mechanized Production. That goes down, but that does trigger Karmic Justice now. So let's see what they target in response. And it looks like they target Ayli with that trigger. So Ayli goes down, but that does trigger Blood Artist and Bastion of Remembrance. We're all going to lose a life from Bastion of Remembrance. Let's see where that Blood Artist trigger goes. I have a funny feeling it is going to be towards the Grand Arbiter's face, and it is. And that is it for their turn. So on their end step, we'll activate Thrasios. We find a land on the top, we'll leave it on the top so we can put that into play. Then we'll activate Thrasios one more time. And we find a Cyclonic Rift. We'll definitely keep that on top. And let's move to our turn. And we draw a Rhystic Study for turn. That's actually really nice to see. Now I would really love to cast this Cyclonic Rift here, but if we overload it and Krark fails the flip, we basically lose our entire turn, which isn't good. So I think we do need to play it a little more patiently here. We'll suspend our search for tomorrow. Then we'll cast our Rhystic Study. That does trigger Esper Sentinel. We'll pay the 1. Now we'll play our Flooded Strand for turn, but we're not going to crack it so we don't get hit by that Confound and Conundrum. And then let's just pass the turn there. Inventor's Fair triggers on Oona's upkeep. We'll actually crack our fetch in response. We'll find ourselves a Steam Vents, and it'll come into play untapped. We'll pay the 2 life. Now Oona will gain a life on their upkeep. They play a land for turn, and it is a Ghost Quarter, so they do have the ability to destroy a land if they need to. They just move straight to combat once again. Oona goes towards the Grand Arbiter player. They pay their taxes. They block with their Elite Spellbinder. Damage goes through, the Spellbinder goes down. That does trigger Blood Artist. That Blood Artist trigger does go towards Grand Arbiter. Now they use Voltaic Key, untapping their Sol Ring once again. Are we going to see a repeat of the previous turns where Oona's ability is activated? They might do so, just knowing we have a Rhystic Study on board, and it seems that's going to be the case. They're tapping out. So they do activate Oona, and again it is targeting the Grand Arbiter player. So they're definitely receiving all the love this game. They make a couple more fairies, exile a few more cards. Can definitely see a lot of Pillow Fort effects. There is a Farewell that's gone. We're happy to see that not there anymore. And that's the end of the Oona player's turn. Mechanized Production triggers on Grand Arbiter's upkeep. So now they get a second Talisman of Progress. They play a land for turn. Now they cast a Generous Gift that triggers Rhystic Study. They don't pay, so we get to draw a card. Esper Sentinel also triggers. They do pay for that. And it looks like the Generous Gift is targeting the Lightning Greaves on Oona, so they want to get rid of Oona as soon as possible. That goes through. Oona makes a 3/3 Elephant. Now they cast a Mind Stone, which triggers our Rhystic Study. They're allowing us to draw another card, so we'll take another card, and that's a land. Now they also cast Elixir of Immortality. Pay 2 tap, you gain 5 life, shuffle Immortality and your graveyard into its owner's library. Once again, they're not paying for Rhystic Study, drawing us another card. So they're either not worried about us drawing cards at the moment with Rhystic Study, or they possibly have a wheel effect in hand, which I really hope they don't because we don't have counter magic to stop that at the moment. And finally, they cast their commander, Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. That triggers our Rhystic Study, and once again we get to draw, and that's an Obscuring Haze. That may become relevant, especially with the Oona player. So now white spells and blue spells cost them 1 less to cast, and spells we cast or their opponents cost 1 more to cast. And they finish that up with Kasmina Enigmatic Mentor. That triggers our Rhystic Study. We draw once again. A Temporal Fissure. Okay, well that's actually good to see. So now Kasmina says spells your opponents cast that target a creature or planeswalker you control cost 2 more to cast, and neg 2, create a 2/2 blue wizard creature token, draw a card, and then discard a card. But it looks like they just moved to their end step and they're not activating their planeswalker. So now we move to the Ayli player's turn. Ayli starts by casting a Zulaport Cutthroat, another Aristocrat's effect, and they do pay for the Rhystic Study trigger. Zulaport says, when it or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Now they sack a token that triggers Zulaport, Blood Artist, and Bastion of Remembrance, and then they recast their commander Ayli. That does trigger our Rhystic Study. They can't pay, so we draw a card. A Deeka. So each of Ayli's opponents loses a life there from the Bastion. Blood Artist does get put towards the Grand Arbiter player again. Zulaport triggers, we each lose a life. And finally, Ayli comes back to the battlefield. And now they move to their end step. So let's activate Thrasios. We find a Krark open. I think we'll actually keep that on top because that's going to be an answer to the Confounding Conundrum, which has been slowing us down. Search for Tomorrow loses a suspend counter. And we draw a Shimmer of Possibility. Well, that's going to help us dig a little bit deeper. So let's start by playing a land for turn. Now let's see if we can get rid of that Confounding Conundrum. If we copy it with Krark, we can also get rid of the Sphere of Safety, which will open the other players up towards swinging in at that player. We just have to hope that Krark is good to us. So casting that does trigger Esper Sentinel. We will pay the 1. So we'll choose heads. Let's hope we get a good flip. We do win the flip. That's also going to trigger Tavern Scoundrel, so that extra target we will put on the Sphere of Safety. And that actually causes the Grand Arbiter player to scoop, so I think that they probably felt the pressure from being targeted by the other players there, and so that's them done for the game. Unfortunately, that does mean that we don't get the treasure tokens from the Krark open, that is. We do get it from the Tavern Scoundrel. But now that does open us up to playing some of our other spells. So let's start by casting a Nature's Law. That triggers Krark. We'll choose heads. We win the flip. That's good. That's extra mana for us. That also triggers Tavern Scoundrel, so we get to make 2 more treasure tokens. So let's go find a Breeding Pool. We'll put it into play. We'll lose 2 life. Our second Nature's Law resolves. We'll just find a basic forest. Now let's cast our Shimmer of Possibility. See if we can dig a little bit deeper. Maybe hopefully find a 1,000-Year Storm. That triggers Krark. We choose heads. We win the flip again. Krark is being really good to us. That makes another 2 treasure tokens. The first Shimmer goes off. We'll just take the Preordain. That's just further card draw. We'll see what we get on our second Shimmer. Okay, we have Flusterstorm, Jeska's Will, and Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt definitely is a way to win the game, but Jeska's Will is going to help us dig a lot deeper. It'll make us a decent amount of mana as well if we target the Ayli player. So let's take Jeska's Will. Now let's cast Jeska's Will. We'll use some of our treasures. That triggers Krark. We go heads. We win the flip. We'll keep the target the same. We get 2 more treasures from Tavern Scoundrel. 3 cards. We exile a Bribery, Anticipate, and Training Grounds. Okay, I do love seeing a Bribery. That also adds 5 red mana to our mana pool. Now we also get Mythos of Oona, Stormkiln Artist. That's actually going to help us really get ahead and explore. Okay, I think this might be the turn, guys. We might be able to get a lot done here. So what we'll do, we'll start by casting Stormkiln Artist, use some of this red mana. Then we'll cast Explore. So we can try to put some of these lands into play, get us more mana and draw us more cards. That will trigger Krark and Stormkiln Artist. Stormkiln Artist makes a treasure. We'll choose heads. We lose our first flip there, but now is the time where it really doesn't matter. Let's do that again. And all the time while we're doing this, we're building up a big storm count for that Temporal Fissure in our hand. Let's choose heads. We get a tails. That goes back to hand. Let's do it again. We make more treasures from Stormkiln Artist. We'll choose heads. We win the flip this time. That triggers Stormkiln Artist and Tavern Scoundrel. Starting to accumulate a lot of treasures over here. We're up to 8, 9 now. We draw a card that's a land and a Mog Salvage. Okay, let's play Yavimaya for turn. We'll also play our Snow-Covered Forest. Now let's try casting our Temporal Fissure, because I think this is going to be enough to actually close out the game here. It'll probably cause our opponents to scoop. So we'll start by bouncing back some of the Ayli players' aristocrat effects and creatures. We'll target that Esper Sentinel that's been around the whole game. Stormkiln triggers, Krark triggers. We actually want tails here. So we'll go heads, but... oh, we win the flip. Okay, so that does go back to our graveyard. Luckily, we do have graveyard recursion in hand. So we'll bounce one of their second permanents there. That triggers Stormkiln Artist and Tavern Scoundrel. Now we have 8 Temporal Fissure triggers on the stack, which will also trigger Stormkiln Artist. So our first Temporal Fissure will target there. We'll go Ayli, Zulaport, the Bastion. We'll bounce back Oona, Voltaic Key, Sol Ring, also their land. Now we have a lot of Stormkiln Artist triggers that go on the stack. That makes us a treasure for each storm count that we had there, which is quite a lot. You can see the treasure starting to amass. Now let's cast Barliged Recovery. We will target Temporal Fissure. That triggers Krark and Stormkiln Artist. We choose heads. We win the flip. Our second target, I think we'll go for Jeska's Will. 2 more treasures from Tavern, 1 more from Stormkiln. Jeska's Will is back to hand. So is Temporal Fissure. Now we'll cast Deka. We'll try our Jeska's Will, just to be safe here. Now it's also going to trigger Deka in addition to Stormkiln Artist. So for each mana value of the spell we cast, we're making a token that gets that many counters. So Deka can get quite out of control in this deck. We'll choose heads for our flip. With tails, we lose the flip, goes back to hand. We'll do that again. We choose heads. We lose the flip again. Let's spin the wheel once again. Come on, Krark, you can be good to us. Heads. Tails again. Krark is not being a good boy at the moment. But with the amount of treasures we're making, it has to go through sometime. And at least we're making lots of bodies every time we do this. Heads. Tails again. Well, we certainly have a bad run of luck now. But we'll just keep going. By now, even if we don't resolve it soon, I think the Temporal Fissure is going to have enough of a storm count that we can close the game out once we bounce all of our opponent's lands. And finally, we win the flip. We'll keep the target the same, so we can generate a lot of mana. Okay, Beast Within, Mystic Remora, not too bad. 11 mana though, that's what's crazy. Now what else did we get? You Find a Cursed Idol is nice. Mind's Desire is really good to see. But I think we can get it done. I think Temporal Fissure is going to be enough here to close out the game. So we'll start targeting their lands. Stormkiln Artist trigger, so does Deka. Makes us a 5/5 now. Krark triggers, we choose heads. We lose the flip, that's really great. So that's going to pretty much close the game out now. We have 16 spells cast before it, that's our storm count. So 16 triggers go on the stack, which is going to be 16 Stormkiln Artist triggers and 16 Deka triggers. So that's going to be 16 5/5s that we're making from Deka. So we're just going to target all the lands here now. And whatever's left, we'll just start picking off a few of these tokens. And I think our opponents are going to see that, and that should be enough to get the game done. Yep, that is the Oona player that is scooped. So many triggers, we just can't even see what's going on. Now, we've gone through all of that, and our opponent hasn't conceded yet. So I don't know if they're away from keyboard at the moment or what's going on. Usually this is the point where people do concede. So look, we'll just actually, if our opponent wants to see us do what we can really do, let's cast our Mind's Desire. If they're in for a good time, then so are we. And worst case scenario happens, we crash Magic Online and we've had a good time while we're doing it. So now we are making 6/6s from this. Krark triggers, we go heads. We lose the flip, that goes back to hand. Now we have 17 triggers on Mind's Desire. That is going to put a lot of triggers on the stack, so let's go through it. Because what we're really hoping to dig for here is Thousand Year Storm. If we can find that, and possibly something like a Lightning Bolt, then we can just end the game on the turn now. But as this is going on, can we please just appreciate this glorious fractal army that is appearing before us? Now we also start to accumulate a lot of treasures thanks to our beautiful Stormkiln Artist. And that has actually caused Magic Online to glitch. So that is it for the game there, guys. It does this. It's basically going through the start of the game again when it glitches out. Well, I hope you enjoyed that game anyway. Let's go to the wrap up and discuss what happened. So I have to admit, when I first saw that we were playing a Grand Arbiter deck, I thought we were in for a tough game. This deck needs to be able to cast multiple low mana value spells to reach its full potential, and typical Grand Arbiter decks that tax you and run effects like Rule of Law stop that plan in its tracks. Luckily for us this game, our other opponents seemed to share our same fear, and they concentrated a lot of their resources on actually taking down the value pieces that the Grand Arbiter player was trying to set up. Eventually, they were receiving so much heat that they actually conceded the game because of it. This highlights an important point worth mentioning if you decide to build or play a quote-unquote kill-on-sight commander. If you decide to go this route, you have to accept that in some games not only will you be targeted, but sometimes excessively so. In fact, this was something we took full advantage of this game. While our other opponents were wearing down the Grand Arbiter player, we were slowly gathering resources until when finally the Grand Arbiter player was taken care of, we were able to pop off and take the game. This is something you always need to be aware of when focusing down a single player. If you take your eyes off your other opponents for too long, one can come out of nowhere and take the game from right out underneath you. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed seeing this Spellslinger deck in action, and if you do decide to play it in paper, good luck keeping track of all your storm triggers. Until next time, guys.